Have you read anything lately that just absolutely terrified you, scared the pants clear off of you? I think that happened to a lot of folks recently with an article written by Matt Schumer, who is a self-proclaimed AI technologist and whatnot, and have no reason to refute that. But he wrote an article called "Something Big is Happening." And it's been read by tens of millions, maybe 100 million or more people at this point. And it's a scary thing. And I want to talk about it today. What does it mean? And how does AI work in flourishing? And how does all this play out? And I want to start with saying I read the piece and I couldn't really disagree with it. There's a lot in there that something big is happening. The acceleration of AI is real. These latest models from the frontier, oh man, it's just one after the other, whether it's ChatGPT or it's Anthropic or it's Gemini, whatever. These new models continue to come out, OpenClaw, and these things. If this all sounds just like soup to you, I get that. That's okay. But the point is, every week, and sometimes more often than once a week, new revelations are made in what's happening in AI, and it is not incremental. It's massive. I mean, I think the framing matters. Framing determines, I think, whether we shrink or we rise up to the occasion. And I think right now, from my perspective, and what do I know? I feel a little bit like we're in the midst of an AI revolution, if you will. And I use that term not lightly. In the Industrial Revolution, we labor at that point, think about working in the fields or whatever, the John Henry moment. Labor was separated from muscle. And if you don't know the story of John Henry, right, he's pounding the railroad tunnel to get the railroad through, and he's trying to beat the steam shovel, and ultimately the steam shovel wins. But John Henry is venerated. His heart explodes in the process. It's kind of a story of, let's go humans, but at the same time, the reality is productivity keeps moving. And while we can honor that and romanticize that, John Henry wasn't beaten by a machine. He was beaten by a man running a machine. And ultimately, I think when we look at AI, that's how this is going to go. But I digress. The Industrial Revolution was a situation where labor was now separated from muscle. The internet, those of us who were around when the internet came on, and those of you who haven't, and the internet's always been around your entire life, it's just a way of living, and it makes sense. When it first came out, it was wild because it separated, information from location, and that was big, and it just absolutely impacted lots of businesses in our very lives. But it was a transition, just like the Industrial Revolution was a transition. And I would argue AI at this point, this agentic shift into a post-agentic world, is going to be separating production from human effort. And I know that sounds weird, but and you could say, well, but I swing a hammer or I do something right. Okay, that's cool right now. But robotics is also moving right in behind as AI is accelerating in its thing. So is robotics. And I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just saying that this article really is pretty accurate on some of this stuff. And I think it's important. I mean, we are entering this post-agentic world where software agents will be doing a ton of things on our behalf. And, there's always the argument of, well, they aren't, that one ChatGPT window I'm in says some stupid things and misses some stuff. That's one, and that's still an LLM, a large language model. It's not really an agent going and doing things. And I know there's different settings on that, but think about, scaling to multiple agents, hundreds of agents, thousands of agents working on your behalf. All of a sudden, it's a John Henry moment, and you're not going to be able to keep up. And so I think there are agents that are writing code today, that are testing that code, that are uploading that code, that are executing that code with very little human interaction, managing workflows, negotiating contracts, looking at all kinds of processes that we thought, only a human can do this. It's not automation. It's really delegation at scale. And I think at this stage, the question is kind of like, okay, if this is coming and if you embrace it, we can argue, and I'm happy to argue with you whether you think it's real or not, or you think it's 10 years off. I don't believe it is. It's here. It's now, and it's within the next year to 3 years. 2026 is absolutely feels like a 2020 type COVID year, but it's not a pandemic. Let's talk about that in a minute. But what I want to say here is, I think when production becomes so abundant, and that's where we're heading, the question I think we should all be asking is, what becomes scarce? What now is rare? Because that's what's going to matter. And I think what's going to become more and more rare is deep human stuff: character, judgment, trust, alignment, curiosity, flourishing, all the things that only humans can do. And I don't know what else that is. And I'm not a futurist. I can't tell you everything, but for me, and when I look at this and when I get the pants scared off of me, I come back to the center and think, all right, where are we at? And so let me go back to the pandemic analogy. He references and he says this is a pandemic type thing where nobody can, lots of people didn't know what was going on. All of a sudden pandemic hit. It's like, is this real? Is it not real? I remember having that feeling. And then all of a sudden everything shut down, lots of stuff going on. Right. And remove all the politics from it, whatever. It was an impactful moment on our world. And I think 2026 is likely has the possibility of being that kind of year for us from an AI perspective. But the pandemic was different. The pandemic removed agency. It forced shutdowns. It was like an external constraint. Whereas as AI, it basically increases agency. It gives you more agency than what you have. And we'll talk about that in a minute. It multiplies leverage and it really rewards engagement. It rewards what we can do as humans because much of that's going to be commoditized and much of what we think we're good at, whether it's white collar work, slinging code, whatever it is. And then ultimately, again, the physical work as robotics comes online. And so I think whereas the pandemic felt like it was something happening to us, I think this isn't something happening to you or to me. It's something we can take advantage of. We can take leverage and explore and do new things and all that. I think it really matters. So again, I talk about like what would be scarce, in an abundant production world, output, super cheap. Speed, no deal. You got tons of agents operating around the clock, around the world. Execution is going to become really cheap. So what is expensive? Integrity. Integrity has always been expensive. Discernment. I've got some buddies, JD, Buddy, Charlie, Luke. They love to put some AI documents together, AI images together, and throw them on our local Facebook page and on social media. And the amount of people who have zero discernment to know that they're so ready to have a political argument or an actually or whatever else. And these guys are just making these fun AI images, and it's hilarious. But I bring this up to say there are folks who just have zero discernment, and discernment is going to be valuable. Is these videos? Oh my God! You saw the video of Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt fighting. If you haven't seen that, check that out. It looks like it almost looks like it's straight out of Hollywood. Those guys, that isn't real, and so we're going to see more and more of that stuff coming. So discernment is really, really going to be an important asset for us to have. Taste, wisdom, moral courage, culture. And cultural coherence, how we get together, the energy we share, that's all really going to be expensive in the post-agentic world. And I think, to kind of quote or paraphrase Stephen Covey, we've spent decades optimizing what he called the personality ethic. And that was, focusing on and you think about influencers and all that. I mean, we doubled down, and he's long gone. He's passed away, RIP. But we continued as a society to value personality ethic and speed, tactics, optics. How do I look? How do I sound? Am I getting the clicks and all this stuff, right? But we're entering a season, I think, and look, I'm a glass 3/4 full kind of guy. It is what it is. But we're entering a season where I think, character ethic, and that's what he said, that the opposite of personality ethic was character ethic. And I think the character ethic compounds. I think AI is going to make it easier to fake competence and make it look like you know what you're doing. You can have it cycle every word you're going to say, even written word, but even the verbal word, right? You have audio, you get these 11 Labs voices. I could be doing a voice right now with this thing and get pretty close to where it sounds like my hillbilly self. But it's going to be easier to fake competence, but it'll make it a lot harder to fake character. And I think that's really important. I want to say that again. AI is going to make it easier to fake competence, but it'll make it near impossible to fake character. And so when we kind of look to, what does this mean? And if you read the article, you probably should. If you're in white collar work, if you're in technology, you should read it. But even if you're not, you should read it. But when you start feeling scared and you start feeling like you have no agency and all, I want to, for the good of the human, I want to pause for a minute. Yeah, there's lots of scary things going on. None of us are going to know what's going to happen. But I want to focus on two traits that I think will define how we as humans navigate this next phase and how we win, if you want to put it that way. But I think it's more of a marriage between carbon and silicon. It's less a Terminator moment with Skynet. I mean, I don't know. You can go either way you want, but I tend to try to lean towards that this will be the next evolution, it'll be the next revolution, if you will, and we'll figure out a way. And on the other side of this, in every revolution prior to this, there was massive productivity gains, massive life quality gains, and I don't expect any different this time. So, but I think the two things that are going to define really the winners, if you will, and I hate to use that word because it sounds like but there will be some losers, and it's folks who are going to feel like it's being done to them, the victims, those things. But the winners, this is a bit of a kind of a leveling, an equanimous moment here where we can all kind of pick in, and that is, I think, curiosity is super important. And even Matt mentions that in his article, a willingness to just experiment, jump in, a comfort to be a beginner. I mean, we're going to set our egos aside to a certain degree, because think if you're a developer today and you develop great software, a team of agents, thousands of agents, whatever, hundreds of agents, one agent maybe, I don't know, as things go on, or just be better. They're going to be faster, and you're not going to be able to keep up. And so that's going to be an ego hit. And so those that can kind of put that aside and will be willing to be a beginner again and have that bias towards exploration and learning. I think curiosity is huge. I think curiosity prevents irrelevance. And I think that's always been the case, but it's just going to really stand out in this moment, I think. Again, I'm not a futurist. I don't know. It feels like a time we need to talk about this. The other one, so we got curiosity. The other one, a word I love is agency. It's, I can do this. I can figure this out. And so you add curiosity with agency. Agency is that whole thing. I'm going to refuse to either A, create narratives in myself that limit me, but B, I'm going to refuse to listen to others' narratives that I can't do that. And, when you grow up as a hillbilly in a small town and the world tells you, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, all those things, right? How could you do this from this small town and this place in West Virginia and all that? The heck with you. I've got my own narrative. I'm going to create my own mind, and call me delusional, but here we go. And I built a technology company right out of Grafton, and things that you just wouldn't think would happen. And it's not about me. It's not about great. It's just that there's power in agency. That's all I'm saying. And so, taking responsibility for adapting and adjusting as things go out there, the people who will flourish in a post-agentic world won't necessarily be the smartest. They're going to be the most curious and the most agentic in a post-agentic world, but they're going to have agency. And I think that, again, this is me, but I think, so what do you do? What do you do with that? Okay, hey, great. I'm going to be curious, and I'm going to feel like I have agency. I'll sit down and do my mantras when I'm meditating and say, I'm a person of agency, right? That's not what I'm saying to do. It might help. I don't know. But I think you got to spend time with the tools. I mean, these things are out there. They're cheap. They're free. Spend time digging in there, figuring it out. Building small experiments. Don't be afraid to fail. Pair AI in your job or your work or things you're doing around the house with vendors, whatever it is. Use it. Teach someone what you're learning. I mean, in goodness sakes, if you got kids, the notion of go to college, get a degree, go get a great job. Even get a trade. Yeah, you can say, go get a trade now. That's going to extend for a little while. But again, I'm telling you, the robots are right behind the AI. No human is going to be immune to this. And so again, that's not scary. It can be scary. Fear is a natural response. Don't get me wrong. But it's a moment, I guess we just got to think about it. We got to think about it in a way that's more real and be practical. Curiosity can create momentum. That momentum then builds and restructures and helps firm up the agency that you're trying to feel. And then agency builds possibility. And I'm not wearing my possibility shirt, but I love that word as well. Think about what's possible. It's easy to look at all this and think about what's coming and oh no, and woe is me and woe is the humanity. And I get all that. And that's probably a reasonable response. You probably do that for a little bit. But then at some point you got to pick your sad sack self up and say, okay, now what are we going to do? And I'm preaching to myself, everybody has their own responses to this, but as I'm navigating through this, I'm just kind of giving you my perspective here. And one of the things that I took some time with our organization, with Mountain Leverage, we used an analogy and used an analogy of the three little pigs. And as an organization at Mountain Leverage, we've done things very differently than many companies have, and certainly in our space. The things we focused on were much more deeply human. We don't burn people for profits. We don't grind people into the ground and swap somebody else into their seat. It's just a different model. And I'm not trying to go high and mighty. My point is, we built our house on brick and on stone, where I think other companies build it on, so straw companies build it on speed and skill and those things. And I think you could look at straw people. If you want to transition this to persons, humans that built themselves on surface skill or identity that's anchored to like some narrow expertise or something. Maybe they're defensive to change, or they've got such an ego that they can't restart or something. That's like building your house with straw. And if you know the way the nursery rhyme goes, when the wolf shows up, that straw house doesn't get it, right? And then I guess there's a stick house, right? And those are maybe people that are built on hustle and hard work, and maybe they can move fast, they can move hard. Maybe the sleep is for the dead and all that kind of stuff. Okay, you can keep up for a little while, maybe longer than the straw folks, but you're probably gonna still succumb to the wind, and definitely so, right? But then did you build your house on brick or with brick? And that's where, and you can there's a biblical analogy on this where you plant the seeds, all that kind of stuff. But in this one, you look at it and you say, okay, the brick people, who are the brick people? Well, character, adaptability, alignment, agency, long-term. Am I thinking long-term orientation, being strategic, having that capacity to learn, the willingness to learn, the reduced ego to be able to learn. I think in this analogy, the wind doesn't create strength; it reveals it. And I think, what do? Well, you lay brick, man. If you didn't build a house of brick, you got some time. Start laying brick is what I would say. And so obviously I'm mixing metaphor with reality here, and I'm mixing what we look at in our organization to individual, how you can look. But, as a founder and a father and a friend in the three roles I'm in, there are times to focus on productivity and speed and strength and all that stuff, of course, but really the gold, the real things are to focus on those bricks, the character and things. So when I'm engaging with my kids, I'm really trying to make sure they're creative, they're curious, they're thoughtful, they're good at they're empathetic. And they really value human interaction. Those things, I just think they're important. So, but let me go back to the article here for a minute. And there are a few things that I don't want to necessarily disagree, but I just think I want to kind of point it out. Now he talks about the timeline and how quickly it's moving, and I can't argue. It's accelerating to the point I'm not sure anybody can really predict where this thing's going. But revolutions tend to move kind of unevenly. There's acceleration points, there's slow points. There's change takes time. Adoption will lag. Our institutions, like our governments, they can't even spell AI, and it's only 2 letters. I mean, things are moving so fast, it's really hard to get there. And so they're going to resist it. Regulation is going to be slow, and then it's going to come out and like overset and cause real problems. And our culture is just going to go gradually. So you have this. You have time. This creates a window of opportunity for all of us. Transitions don't eliminate opportunity. It actually kind of creates this opportunity almost asymmetrically where you can really just jump right in. But I'm not, so again, I don't want to feel terminal at this point. I mean, I think we've got time in our lifetimes to make some move, but it is moving. It's this, you don't have decades. You have time. I think the second thing, his article leans a lot on the pain and the darkness of it. And, hey, sure, I get it, that some jobs are going to disappear. Some identities, how you identify your value, somebody's going to your feelings are going to get hurt. It's going to come at you. Well, nobody can do this better than me. Maybe a bit of program code in a neural network of an AI can do it. An agent, maybe 10 agents can replace you. I just don't know. Egos are going to take hits. And this isn't me talking on a horse. This is coming right at me. I mean, when you look at what CEOs do, it's coming right directly at my job. And so I'm not speaking from some insulated area somewhere. CEOs are going to get replaced left and right. And you know what? These stinkers who've been making, thousands of times more than their average employee, good riddance, man. That day is ending soon, and it should never have got there. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. I guess what I would say is, the pain is real, but it's proof of transition, not of apocalypse or the end of the world. It's proof of transition. So I would just I would encourage early engagement and engaging there. I think, I think that's fine. I don't need to go through and tear up all his article. It was a great article. And I think it's worth a read as long as you're balancing some of this. And so one of the things I wrote up, put it over here. In fact, yeah, here we go. And I worked with AI to clean this up as I put my kind of voice into it. And I said, what do you think about this? And here's what I said, what is the Alex Reneman manifesto on what's happening right now? And so I think this is cool. So I'm just going to read it word for word. AI will make productivity abundant. Abundance shifts value to what is scarce. What is scarce is human depth, character, judgment, trust, alignment, curiosity, agency. So build depth, build character, stay curious, take agency, lay brick. So that's my manifesto for what's happening right now. I can't tell you what all is going to go on. I don't know. Nobody knows. Even the folks that are telling you they know and are 10 times smarter than me or 100 times, they don't know either. It's a best guess. I think at this point, the agentic age will reward the curious, the courageous, and it'll be the deeply grounded in the human virtues that I think will be most rewarded over time, and the ones that are curious and willing to see what's happening in the world and what's happening with AI and the agents, to be able to how does that help us be better? And you know what? If that works, great. And if they'll still subjugate us and take us all over, whatever, you tried your best, right? I say that tongue in cheek. I get it. There's a bunch of you that fear that happening. And look, I'm kind to my Roomba. You never know what's going to happen. But I am much more kind of pumped about the opportunity that comes with this. And maybe this will age like milk, and all of a sudden they'll have us all subjugated in cages, and we'll have to speak AI language to get our way out. I don't sense that's going to be the case. I sense this is another revolution in the time of the human existence, and an evolution, if you will, where we have a moment to really engage with silicon in a way that the carbon hasn't before. And on the other side of this, we have a lot of opportunities for us. But I again, I come down, just like everything we talk about on this podcast, flourishing is all about being your best self, and living to your fullest, and those things. And that's about investing in the virtues and your identities of who you are and living that out to the fullest. And, is who you are going and pounding on a keyboard 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, or whatever your job is. I think back before the Industrial Revolution, when work happened, it was a lot more like, it wasn't based on, you weren't trading dollars for hours, and it was more creative and folks doing things. And I wonder, maybe to flourish, maybe pounding the keyboard is the thing you do, but maybe it's different, and maybe what you do is different. Maybe the creativity line there is different. I don't know, but I'm intrigued. I'm curious, and I do feel agency to take action in this in a way. I'm going to continue to double down and triple down on my humanity and the virtues that align with who I am and the identities that I've chosen as a path. And I wish the same for you. And if you get scared about this, I get it. That's a natural reaction. But just know that not all of us are scared, and some of us are trying to figure out a path. And I think most of you listening to this podcast, you're probably one of those people. And so, join with me. Let's figure it out. It's gonna be a wild ride. It'd be a lot of fun. It'd be a lot of hurt, a lot of all kinds of everything in between. But I think we get into this. It's going to create opportunities that we just couldn't even imagine. So anyway, and I guess as I often say, and I really mean it, I hope wherever you are and whenever you listen to this, and whenever we end up on whatever side of whatever this is, I hope you're flourishing.